Hi all, welcome to video 25 of Genia using Langchain and Databricks playlist. Now, in this video, we will be learning about output parsers in Langchain. So, in last 3-4 videos, we have seen how to work with the LLMs who support the structured output, right? In that case, we have used with structured output function and we have worked with those LLMs, right? Before it generates the output, we asked LLM itself, right, to convert the output it is giving into structure, right, before it is generating the output. Now there are few LLMs which do not support structured output, right? They give their output in unstructured format. So in such a case, what we do is we use output parsers in Langchain, right? So whatever output, raw output we are getting, we can parse it, right, and we can make it structured, right? So what are output parsers in Langchain? It converts raw LLM response that we have received into clean, structured, and usable output, right? Now, basically, what are output parsers? These are the classes in Langchain that basically convert the LLM's raw text response that we have received into structured, usable format, right? The difference between output parser, I mean the LLMs which support the structured output and which do not support structured output, is that for LLMs that support structured output, before LLM generates the output, it it is converted into structured format, right? The LLMs which do not support structured output, we use output parsers. The separate we call a component or runnable in Langchain, which converts the unstructured output that LLM has given into structured usable format, right? So we have basically JSON output parser is there, CSV output parser is there, Pydantic output parser is also there, right? And plain string, the string output parser is also there, right? So basically Pydantic, now we all know, we have seen the with structured output function, right? And Pydantic is something which gives validated Python. I mean, it does the validation on the output, right? Same is available in output parsers also. Okay, and these output parsers basically they ensure consistency, validation, and ease of use in the real application, right? Right, we all know the importance of structured output, right? Naturally LLM will return free text, right? For example, like this, the sentiment is positive and score is 0.92, but if we want to feed it to some downstream application, we will need it in some JSON or we will need it in some dictionary, right? So using JSON, for example, the example that you are seeing on the screen, this is converted using JSON output parser, right? Now, without parsing, if we use the raw text as it is, right, it is very difficult to extract the values from the raw text, right? Pulling the field from the sentence, right? It is definitely very fragile and it can be error prone also, right? Also the outputs we are getting from LLM, they are not same every time, they are inconsistent, right? So it is very important for such LLMs which do not support structured output to use output parsers and convert the output into the structured format, right? Also, the third issue, if we use raw LLM output as it is it will break automation. The downstream pipelines, right, cannot rely on the unpredictable output that upstream is generating. For here, upstream is LLM, right? So all these issues, output parser is going to solve for us, right? So what are the what all things output parsers do? They format the output, right? They tell the LLM how the structure, right, is to be formatted, and after response is generated, they format the output, right? The output parsers, they parse the response, right? We use Pydantic and it will parse the response also. Okay, structure is also validated, so using Pydantic output parser we can validate structure also. Okay, and the raw output that we are getting can be converted to object, for example Python dictionary or JSON, right, to use it for downstream applications, right? So all these things output parser will do, right? um, Now, the landscape for parsers is there are multiple parsers, but there is only one interface, right? So we have string output parser, JSON output parser, Pydantic parser, structured parser, and there are many more output parsers available. You can see the link below, right? It is the Langchain documentation for output parsers, right? The If we want to understand in very simple terms the difference between output parsers and what we have learned earlier, right? The with structured output function, very simple. There are few LLMs which by default generate structured output, and we use these LLMs using with structured output function. There are few LLMs which do not by default generate structured output. To convert the raw text that LLM generated to structured output, we use output parsers. As simple as that, right? So we have seen JSON output parser, right? The basically JSON format, right? Using which structured output function. We have seen Pydantic also. Same things we are going to look at it here, right? The first thing, the string output parser. I'm not going to do any coding exercise on string output parser because it is very simple to understand. And when we learn JSON output parser or Pydantic output parser, there I might cover few lines of code for string output parser. So string output parser, basically what it does is it parses the LLM output and returns it as plain text. Basically, um, what happens, LLM output, right? If you see what is coming back from the LLM, what is coming back from the model, on the left side you see the results, right? So we get content, we get response metadata, we have already seen, right, in previous videos. We get usage metadata, right, ID, model, and all these things, extra fields we get. Earlier what we used to do is we used to manually get the plain text, right, the plain content using result.content, right? Instead, if we use string output parser, it will directly return me the content. I don't need to do result.content manually, right? And this is the sample code block, right? So I said I'll not cover any code, but this is ready to use code block. Basically, I have given here. Okay. So basically, simple thing. I think chat databricks is something which we are importing right from the start of this playlist, right? Then prompt template we need to import from Langchain core.prompts, right? We will create a chat model. We will create a prompt, right? Any prompt that you want to create, that is fine, right? Now, if I create a chain, if I invoke if I create a chain of prompt and chat model, right? And if I invoke that chain, if I print the results, it will be having all these things what we are seeing on the left: content, response metadata, usage metadata, right? But right, if I want to get only the content, only the LLM text response, I'll have to use result.content manually, right? Instead, what we can do is, here I have imported structured string output parser, right? So I'll just create an object parser equals to string output parser, and in chain, in the end, I'll just pass this parser runnable, right? So whatever output, whatever all the response that LLM is giving, right? It is giving response metadata, right? The content and all these things. It will just return me the content, right? Using string output parser. That is the that is the use of string output parser. It will not do any validation, nothing. You just have to you just don't have to do the manual extraction, right? It will do it for you. That is the use of string output parser, right? Few advantages of string output parser, very simple. No, you don't need a big setup. You just have to import string output parser, that's all, right? Very fast, because it is not doing validation, it is not doing anything, it is just returning the content text output from LLM. So it is very fast, right? It is great for chaining, right? We just saw the code block here, right? We have chained the output parser. Okay, so it is great for chaining, right? That is the best quality of Langchains, is we can chain multiple components and we can create the pipeline, right? Then it works with all LLMs, right? Whether it is the LLM which is supporting the structured output or not supporting the structured output. The LLMs which support structured output, there also we need to extract the content manually. Result on content we do, right? So there also we can use the string output parser. It is something which is different from other output parsers, right? And it is perfect for basically UI applications where we want to just display the text, right? Some disadvantages of structured output parser: no structure. It just uh, you know uh, gives output as plain text, right? We don't need to do response dot sentiment and all these things, right? We can't extract anything from it, right? Like response sentiment, okay, it is not an Python dictionary, it is not a JSON, right? Then it will not do any validation. Whatever LLM is returning, right, in content, same thing it will just return, right? The next thing, it is not for basically for pipelines, it is for simple UI where you want to show the text and all these things, right? There it is important. Okay. Now very simple. When to use string output parser? When we are needing plain text output, right? When we are building some chatbot or some UI, right? When we are doing some summarization or we are doing some explanation. Okay, for example, the chat GPT that we use, right? The copilot that we use, the Claude that we use, right? We ask them for code and it gives us the what it gives us basically the plain text, right? It parses it. I mean, it gives us it is the response of string output parser, right? It is not giving us response metadata and all these things, right? So that is the uses of string output parser, right? We need to avoid string output parser basically when we are needing structured output, right? And when we want to do some built-in validation, we will avoid string output parser, right? And this is how we will proceed. We will learn all upcoming output parsers. First, we will see the uses of that output parser, right? Then we will learn how to code with that output parser. Then we will see a few advantages, disadvantages of that output parser. We will see when to use, when not to use, right? So that whenever you have requirement in your project or whenever you have live requirement, you are crystal clear on which output parser is to be used. If you are using the LLM which does not support the structured output, if your LLM that you are using is supporting the structured output, then you don't need to use these parsers, right? Maybe you will need to use only string output parser, but other output parser you don't need to use, right? Fine. Now what we have learned, like basically we have seen the output parser, they turn the LLM raw text into structured output, right? We have JSON output parser, pydantic output parser we will do, which will do a validation, right? String output parser is the simplest one, it returns the clean plain text, right? Adding I mean, we don't need to get the manual extraction using result.content. Okay, my string output parser will give me the content. Okay, and we can use this string output parser for text and prototyping, right? We use structured parsers like JSON or pydantic for pipelines, as simple as that, right? So very simple. If we learn with comparison, it is going to be very easy for us, right? If we ask the question why and when, it is going to be very useful. It is going to be very informative. And when we have live requirement in the project, it is going to be crystal clear for us, right? Fine. I think that's all for this video, right? I just wanted to give you the brief understanding on output parsers, when to use those, when we are using LLM which is not supporting structured output. In that case, we use the output parsers to get the output structured, right? And we have seen the string output parser. Basically, I don't need to manually go and fire result.content, right? I just pass my structured output, pass my output that LLM has given through string output parser, and it will give me the content by default, right? Fine. That's all. In next video, we will continue with our I think 2 3 output parsers we will learn, whatever we have seen in the with structured output function, right? Same maybe, or a couple of more maybe we will try to explore, right? Fine, that's all for this video. I hope you are liking it. I'm just making these videos little shorter so that it keeps your interest, and also you get all the needed information in short span of time. You don't need to watch the video for more than 20 25 minutes. I'm trying to limit the videos for to you know 10 to 15 minutes max to max. Some videos might go beyond 15 minutes, right? Because I'm not limiting the content that I want to make you understand. I'm just not spending the time in live coding, right? everything I'm keeping the ready and just explaining you conceptually so that you can learn it on the go, right? You are in travel or you are walking or you are doing something, you just watch the video and your concepts will be clear, right? Fine. That's all for this video. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.